Hello, good afternoon everyone. My name is Oona. I am the president of Aalto Entrepreneurship Society, also known as Aalto ES. Thank you for all of you for joining. Today we're going to present you introduction to the venture capital that we are producing with Aalto Investment Club. But yeah, I think it's time to introduce our honorable guest for today. But Johannes, Tervo here and Oona Poropudas already know each other since they used to be roommates. So I'm going to give them the honors to introduce themselves.
All right.
Each other, actually.
Well, firstly, awesome to be here. Thanks, Mona. And
Thank you.
Everybody else. Can I introduce you, Johannes?
If you dare.
Yeah, okay.
Let's go.
I'll give it a try.
Okay.
So Johannes, first of all, is a fantastic person. He's really always like sunny and energetic, and I think that's how people usually know him. But he's studied environmental energy and environmental engineering.
That's right.
Yeah, and then he spent at least 4 years with me at Slush, heading the partnerships team, partnerships and sales, and nowadays he's joined the Inventure team, Inventure investment team. And in his free time, he's at least big of an athlete.
Nice.
That's how.
What was the challenge that I would throw to the audience if they see me?
Oh, what would you do outside of work?
Yes.
Well, at least sports. I know that you would do sports. Anything to do with Kimi Räikkönen
Yes.
is your specialty.
And I'm willing to try freestyle rapping with anyone that comes for
True.
secret. And
Nice.
Oona, lovely Oona.
Lovely Oona.
Yes, we've known since 2015. Oona has been an active part of Aalto University in many occasions, part of Kyski, and then at Slush, working most recently as the president of Slush. And now has joined Lifeline Ventures as a venture capitalist, leading operations here, and she's going to tell you more about that. Oona is a true force of positivity, and I believe that you're going to create world-conquering initiatives now and in the future. Yoga is an awesome yoga buddy as well.
Great. You both had pretty lovely introductions, honestly. Like now we know a bit more about Oona and Johannes. But hey, before we get into the venture capital theme, we have Presomo. So if you have any pressing questions, you can ask throughout this conversation. Before we get into it, actually, I have a wild card. Since both of you work at VCs, and you both were building up your careers at Slush. And by the way, if you don't know what Slush is, it's the coolest tech event in the world, I dare to say. It gathers approximately 25,000 startups, investors, industry leaders to this very place, Helsinki. But I would like to ask both of you, what was your career path that you saw yourself when you were a kid? Did you see yourself? I think many might not answer that they saw themselves as VCs or investors. So how would you answer that? When Johannes and Oona were kids, what did they want to become?
Okay, shall I start?
Yeah,
All right.
go ahead.
I think the first moment that I thought I'm gonna become something was I was 14. I've been it's called a bensalenkari, so a petrol sneaker guy from young. We've had a big place on the farm that we've had a lot of mopeds and so forth. And as many of my friends, I wanted to become a Formula One driver. And that actually led to me going to study mechanical engineering first to at least become Formula One engineer. But then I shifted. I thought the guys on the other side were doing more meaningful problem solving. So fighting climate change, for example. How about Oona?
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the first career I pictured myself in was veterinary. I loved animals, so that was my choice of career when I was a kid. But then later on, dancer. I actually danced something like 9 times a week until I was 17, and then I went to exchange and that changed. But yeah, after that, it's been fluid constantly. I'm always looking for new things and new adventures, so I don't think my career path will look linear in any way. I'm gonna bounce from things to things, and that's the way I would love it to be.
Pretty damn good question. This is actually one of the best things. You're painting a canvas. You're not making linear progression.
No,
Exactly.
but
Yeah,
I
for
like
everyone.
that. Yeah, I like that. Pretty different answers. answers. But yeah, but if you now get into the VC scene, many might have been hearing about venture capital. And by the way, when I say VC, it means venture capital. Just saying, because I remember when I used to hear all this scene VC. I'm like, what is that?
Where's the toilet?
Where's the toilet? Yep. Everybody's going to the VC and getting investments there. So a lot of things happening in the toilet. But yeah. Just to paint a bigger picture on the venture capital, especially now that we have a new media outlet called HSVCO, you might hear or see headlines like this company has raised 400 million, 500 million or 600 million euros. Those are pretty big sums. And then you hear that they have raised these funds from venture capital. What is it actually? What is a venture capital? If Oona wants to go first.
Sure. So venture capital company is an investment company, and it's an investment company that invests into startups. So high growth companies, usually based on disruptive business models or technology that aim to just grow fast. And venture capital company provides resources for this company. So at least money, but usually also networks and expertise. So they're kind of a partner along the way, helping the founders fulfill their fast growth dream. Yeah, in a nutshell.
Okay. Do you have anything to add on to that, Johannes? Or
Wholesome answer.
okay, great. But then, well, actually, to backtrack a little, since both of you worked at Slush, and it gathers investors. You hear a lot of these words like VCs or private equity or other forms of investment. When did you get into the venture capital industry? What's the first time that you even heard about the industry? Is it Slush or is it even prior to that?
Do you want to go first, Jojo?
At Slush,
Okay.
when I was printing this batch to hold and it said investor, and then I heard some of the investors are venture capital investors.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Oona?
Yeah, I think I heard the term earlier, but I really learned more about venture capital industry at Slush. I remember the first year, 2017, being in the Slush organizing team, and all of these words were new to me, like startup and VC and cryptos, and you just had to kind of Google and learn fast, and that's where I got into it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I remember at my very first Slush, I heard Bitcoin and blockchain the first time. So I'm like running around and I'm like Googling these words at the same time, like what does that mean? And I think it was also for me the first place that I heard what is actually a venture capital. So it's not a given thing. And I think especially at school, they don't really talk about. Since you are from the engineering facility, you study at the economics side of things. Have you heard about venture capital at school, at the business school?
I don't actually think so.
No.
It's not focused on startups and venture capital. I think, startups came through Aalto ES and Slush then, but not through school, really.
Yeah. What about you, Johannes, at the engineering facility at Energy and Environmental Engineering? Did you hear your professor talking about venture capitals?
Maybe on my last year of studies.
Okay.
Yeah, commercializing research was the topic, and then,
Okay.
hey, this is actually how you make your idea into reality.
Okay, that's progress, honestly. But also I want to ask, how has Slush impacted your career choices? Since you said that you probably heard the first time about venture capital at Slush, how has it impacted your career choices? Maybe you go first and then Oona.
Yes, it has impacted. Well, I've sensed since a couple of years back, I see entrepreneurship as a great method to create the world that we want to see. I sensed I'm an entrepreneur person myself, and I potentially will found a company myself that will take funding from an external source, and one of them is possibly venture capital funding, and that's I felt that this phase of my career and life, I had the opportunity to join a venture capital fund to see it from the inside, and that's how it affected me basically.
Okay,
Yeah.
What about you, Oona?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about VC at all before Slush, obviously, because I didn't know about it, but I didn't even think about startup kind of bubble or the startup industry at all before Slush. So it kind of grew on me. Yeah, it's just been a great working environment, a great kind of learning expertise, and filled with a lot of enthusiastic, ambitious people, and that kind of, I don't know, took me with it.
Okay, great. Now I just think, or I imagine that, well, you both have been working at Slush for a long time before joining your VCs, and you get to see these investors maybe motivated you guys to go towards the VC industry. But if we get into the venture capital and the structure of it, how does the structure work? So what is the roles that there are in a venture capital? Since you're an investment analyst, Oona, you're an operational lead. So what is the structure or the roles in venture capital? Or are there too many that you can not even like get into it that much? Or
there's many roles within venture capital. I think could it be meaningful to take the roles after we cover what venture capital is? But yeah, basically the teams are around finding opportunities for investment, and then once the investments are done, then helping them actually grow, so operational help.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically there are the investors that are seeking the companies that the VC would potentially invest in, and then there's the operational role of it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, maybe there can also be in larger venture capital companies, there can be operational roles that are kind of inward. So for example, we have a CFO here. So Samuli, our partner, he also invests, but he also kind of manages our financials.
Okay.
So those operations can be toward the companies that we invest in or ourselves. And in smaller teams such as ourselves, people usually do both. So they invest and help with portfolio.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the aims actually for a VC? What are you guys aiming for?
We want to go on.
Yeah.
Why is venture capital? Why it exists?
Yeah, I think it depends on how you look at it. But from venture capital point of view, you're kind of a competitive asset class. So your aim is to make money and make profits. Let's say that we invest not only our own money, but also our limited partners, so LPs' money. And they could direct that funding elsewhere as well, so real estate or stock market. So we have to be able to give returns that are competitive. But additionally to that, there can be other kind of pursuits as well. Let's say a climate tech venture capital funding, they aim to maximize their profits, but they also aim to reduce global warming. So there can be different things, and it depends. You know, we're looking for entrepreneurs or VCs or societal perspective.
Yeah. Maybe adding into the, you well said, the kind of investor's perspective.
Yeah.
So adding into the founder's perspective, you kind of tap into, there are several places you can look for funding. So let's play that I'm an entrepreneur and I want to create the world leading flower career company. So I'm gonna take flowers to all the mothers or my girlfriend, let's say. I have 50,000 of my own saving to start a company. I've built my website, but then my ambition is so high that I'm not looking to grow this linearly, like become Finland's biggest. I want to become the world's biggest. And I'm gonna need a lot of money to market that company and the services. So I'm gonna walk into Oona's office here at Lifeline.
Welcome.
Welcome. And to grow this company, I'm willing to give you part of my company, up to 20%, if you're willing to invest into my company with 300,000 euros.
Yeah.
Are you game?
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about your business model and your background?
No need.
But definitely, I know you'd be fantastic entrepreneurs, of course. But,
okay. Well, and then the third one covered briefly, the societal kind of or economical perspective. Venture capital funds which are willing to take this like bigger risks than banks, private equity funds, crowdsourcing, although they can be very risky as well, or family offices. These are basically enabling moonshot companies that actually quite potentially even quite kind of is big growing concept in Finland, which we see kind of picking up kind of total funding in Finland, which picked up like 1 billion euros last year, a record number. So yeah, moonshot factory of the world,
society.
of society as a financial instrument.
And actually, we're going to get into the impact side of VCs because there's a lot of talks about impact, whether it's founders founded their companies and how they take that aspect into account, and also VCs. What are their roles in impact? But we will get more into that later on. But since both of you work in a VCs, and I know they operate differently depending on what they're focusing on, so can you a bit tell about Lifeline Ventures and InVenture and how they operate?
Sure.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
No, you go first.
Well, shortly put, InVenture is a venture capital fund which is based here in Helsinki. It's been kicking since 2005, and currently we're deploying our third fund, which is 120 million. We're looking for world-conquering initiatives, so founders from very early stage. We want to be involved even from idea stage with founders. And from each fund, we fund 20 to 30 companies from Finland, but also from other Nordic countries and even Baltics.
Okay,
Yeah.
great pitch.
So if you're working on a tech company, solving a meaningful problem, be in touch.
Good plug, by the way, Zend.
Wow, great pitch. Yeah, Lifeline Ventures is an early stage investor as well. We invest. We want to be the first investor with the founder, and we're sector agnostic. That means we invest into all types of companies through different fields and technologies. We invest mostly in Finland, so I think about 95% of our investments are in Finland because we see that we have a competitive advantage here. We know the scene, we have the networks, we have the expertise, and we're founder focused, but also founded. So our founding partners have been our serial entrepreneurs. And well, we're on our fourth fund as well, but we have previous other vehicles as well. And our current fund is about 130 million euros, and we invest into around 30 companies as well.
You both actually touched upon the VC funding, or that you guys are on your fourth round. So what does that consist of, or what does that mean that you're on your fourth round?
Yeah, so funds are kind of products of VC companies. So when we pull in money from our LP, so our investors, they invest into funds, not our company per se.
Is this pen and paper time? Do you want to draw?
Hey, this is pen and paper time.
Okay.
Let's go.
We can do it.
Do you want to draw or should I draw?
You can go.
All right. So we thought before you audience joined that some cases might be better to visualize. So I draw,
I can explain.
You can explain.
Yeah, okay. So
if it's possible technically.
So should we start with LPs?
Let's start with LPs.
Okay,
hopefully this works.
So, because we're venture capital companies, or we work in venture capital companies, we need money to invest. We will invest our own money, but then also other people's money.
Let's put the VC here in the middle.
That's the VC, exactly. And like startups, we also need funding. And we pool that funding from LPs, so limited partners. And these limited partners can be wealthy individuals, family offices, so companies that invest families' money. They can be pension funds such as Varma, Elo, or other vehicles as well. And then we pool the funding into one fund. So that's what we're talking about, fund 1, 2, 3, 4.
So this is the company.
Exactly.
But actually the money is in these funds. So let's like fund 1, fund 2, fund 3 in our case, and fund 4 in your case already.
Exactly. And then from that fund, you invest into startups. And usually the kind of fund cycle is about 10 years. Anything from like 8 to 15, 8 to 12 is probably usual. And out of that, 4 years is active investing time. So in 4 years, you kind of invest into those 20 to 40, whatever, companies. And after that, you kind of help them grow and maybe make follow-on investments. So you have reserved part of the money you've pulled in to invest later on those companies that need it and have great growth potential.
Very
that
well
That's amazing. That's
So,
amazing input.
like Oona put it, let's say it's 120 million. That's the total fund size. And the initial investment, so let's say that 25 companies receive, let's say, like 30 million of that as an initial investment, but then the rest, like say 70% might be reserved for when the company grows and the appetite and the need of the money grows bigger.
Yeah.
So if the initial investment is 300,000 euros, the next need might be up to 5 million euros, for example. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that is perfectly summed up. Thank you for drawing. And we're going to actually use Johannes' pen and paper. When I say PP
All right.
time, you know what's up. Okay, thank you. I hope this clarified to your audience that what is actually a VC fund and how was it made. But yeah, since Lifeline Ventures and InVenture, as I said, they are a little bit different in the focuses. As I understood, in InVenture, you guys do invest with different rounds, but then Lifeline Ventures focuses on supporting the founder from early on. So can you a bit more explain on how does the round go? And if I'm just like, as you said, a normal maybe student and I'm looking for a funding, do I just like how does it go and what rounds it is? Like how does it go? If you guys can explain, and who wants to go first?
I think it's your turn.
Yeah, I can go. So basically, if you're looking for investment, you reach out to investors usually. Some investors do scout, most of investors also scout. There's a lot of inbound, so entrepreneurs reaching out to us. And you basically send an email or then you ask a warm introduction. So ask from somebody that already knows us, could you introduce us please? And you send a message that includes who are you, what your company does, what's your idea, what kind of growth numbers have you already seen, any kind of relevant data. And then usually you attach your pitch deck. So pitch deck is a like a PowerPoint that kind of shortly and visually explains your business idea and the relevant metrics. And then we look through that email, the pitch deck, and if we're interested, we usually want to agree on a meeting. During the first meeting, we go through the pitch deck, we talk more, we ask questions that we see relevant. And after that first meeting, usually we already then have a pretty good hunch whether we're interested and want to invest or not. We might ask for a second meeting, but often we already know. And after that, our investment decision, of course, the entrepreneur decides as well, because they're usually pitched to multiple investors. For example, one of the companies we invested in had 50 investors pooled. So then the investor decides and the entrepreneur decides. And after that, there's a due diligence process. So it can usually be, for example, like a lawyer, a law company that goes through the kind of potential risks of that company and if there's anything that we should be aware of. And after that due diligence, basically, we make the investment, we transfer the money, and then starts the actual kind of journey together. So there's board meetings and continuous interaction, calls and emails to together kind of build the company and help it grow.
Okay, so a warm lead, an email.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Warm lead is always good. If you
Better.
know somebody who knows the investors, it's kind of a recommendation already. So always look for warm leads.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Johannes and InVenture?
Yeah, our business is the same. So like from investment phase, we're also we want to be the first investor. So the process is very similar. I'd also add in the beginning that as a starting founder, I think this is very good that we discuss this because there might be many entrepreneurs of the future listening. So there's you can choose venture capital as an investment opportunity, but that's where you're willing to give away equity. So you gotta think about it. Are you willing to give a piece of your company away? Before that, you might, before making that decision, you might decide to use, let's say, governmental grants that don't take equity. It's just it can be a cheap loan, or then it can be a grant funded for you alongside creating economic wealth in Finland. Yeah.
And both of you, if you are a student, do you consider students that you would actually fund their ideas, or do you actually look onto their track record that they have built a career or have been part of a startup, or how does that work? If I'm a student, I don't really have a massive CV. I haven't built up my career, but I have a fire idea. But you don't know me. I'm just telling you I have a fire idea. So, and I don't have a warm lead. I don't know anyone. Do you still invest? Do you take those risks?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And of course, things like track record, like what you've done previously. Have you already tried one startup? It maybe failed, but you learned something from it. Have you been working in startups? Do you have the knowledge base it takes? Or have you studied something? Let's say you studied chemical engineering and you want to build a company that's in that field. That's already something. But yeah, we founded companies, for example, Swappy with Jiri and Sami, who are from the Aalto Business School. They did have Viking Shave Club before it, so they had this kind of track record of trying something. And they had this kind of a fiery attitude, and they had really kind of the attitude to build something. And there was a warm lead as well. But we have invested into students as well.
Yeah. What about Inventor?
Absolutely. So, like part of the funds are usually allocated to the kind of investment where it's a group or an individual and a great idea, and then let's make it a reality as fast as possible, kind of case. But I'd advise to absolutely like take part in. So investments is one, but at some phase it might be like earlier. It's more valuable to receive advice in directing a kind of, let's say, business model or a business idea. A great place to look for that is, let's say, Kiuas here in Helsinki. Kiuas actually in Aalto University, and all kind of, or Ignite by Aalto ES, shout out. Or then just come and ask me or Oona. I mean, this is it's a big kind of common cake that we're building. I don't consider competition because we're trying to make a competitive kind of Finland in the world.
Yeah. I like that when you said that. I think a good way, especially if you're a student, you don't have a warm lead accelerating programs. As you said, QWAS or Ignite, those are pretty good accelerating programs where basically you get in if you apply or if they choose you, but I hope they choose you. I hope your idea is fire. And they help you to build up your idea, and they actually connect you with coaches, mentors, industry experts. They support you, and then there's usually a demo day where there's investors. So that is the best way to kind of put your name out there and put your company out there, because the first thing that you build might not be the one, basically.
Yeah, and maybe to add to that, something that Johannes mentioned as well, advice. So even if you're not looking for funding yet, but you know you might be looking for funding in the future, you can ask for advice, and kind of just building these relationships before you need them. That kind of you put yourself out there on the map, and you have some people to, if not raise funding from, then get advice from that who to raise from. So just kind of seeking for advice from different people always helps.
Yeah, and Johannes, you actually said that the audience could get an sparring or talk with you and Oona. So how could people actually reach you? If they want to spar, they have an idea, they know you're an inventor, you're at Lifeline Ventures. How can they contact you?
You can call me or reach out to me.
You're like down below.
Yeah,
there's
down
like
below.
Johannes details.
Johannes at inventory.vc.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that easy? I can just shoot an email to you.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
Okay. Great. And
Yeah.
how?
Just
Oona,
to add on at lifelineventures.com.
Yeah, we'll plug both of you in.
Yep.
Awesome.
For sure. But how does then the progress go? So you invested in the company. How does the progress go?
So we've decided to invest into Oona's pot factory.
Sure.
In this case, I mean the beautiful pottery.
Yes. No, I'm making pots for kids.
Well, the process after the investment decision is that we transfer you the money, and then we try to make you successful with that money and us involved, because now we're partial owners of your company. And that might be, like Oona earlier said, us helping you define your kind of business strategy, expansion strategy, how you move, expand into Europe or the US. Let's say Volt and Swappy both are actually both have been investors in both companies. So kind of shared knowledge from there, or then help you, let's say, hire exceptional talent from abroad. And then not most importantly, but at the stage that, let's say, 18 months in, which is a kind of typical phase where you have to, or where you look for additional investment if everything has gone great, then we will help you to connect with additional later investors as well from, let's say, abroad.
what he said.
Okay, that's perfect. Actually, before I go into the questions that I'm interested in to ask you, there's some audience questions. So let's take those in.
Cool.
So if I'm seeking VC funding, how should I pitch my idea? Any good tips for pitching? And actually, you co-founded Talk.
Yeah.
So you know about pitching.
Oh yes.
If you go first.
The first answer, for long answer, you can come to Aalto at Ignite, where I'll be helping in pitching workshop.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
this summer.
amazing.
But basically, what your pitch should include, one of the kind of the godfathers of pitch decks. Check out Y Combinator's website. By the way, all entrepreneurs, great advice there. But you should answer basically these questions. The vision. So this is what investors are looking for: vision for the company. Then you gotta answer what kind of product you're building, why that product or solution fixes a problem that you're trying to fix. Then address the scalability. Venture capital funds, we invest in tech companies usually that are able to scale, grow fast with low cost. So the scalability issue. Then represent your team. So why are you the people that will build this vision? Why are you the best to do it? And then, would you add something else, Oona? What makes you unique? I guess that's because there's usually an idea or team who has already addressed the problem. So why this product specifically or specific thing of your product is unique that you should invest in rather than the competition?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's your competitive advantage? What do you have that nobody else has that makes you successful? Talk a little bit about the market. So what's a market size? What's your focus in the market? Maybe who are your customers a bit more in detail. If you already have some traction, so what kind of sales have you managed? What kind of market data have you gathered? Have you made some questionnaires? How many of those people you interviewed would use your product? Do you have an MVP, so minimum viable product? So all kind of relevant progress that you've already had, in addition to what Johannes said.
You guys pretty much said it perfectly, and I'm actually a bit jealous. I didn't know that you're actually helping out at Ignite. I would apply just for Johannes helping me to pitch. So the ones that are in there are pretty lucky.
Well, cool.
But I'm going to shift the gear a little bit, and we will go towards the employment side, since you both started there. And actually you're from the engineering facility, you're from the business side of things, which is actually pretty amazing, because usually you might think if you go to an investment industry, you have to have a business background. How did your interview process go, by the way? How does a person apply to a VC company?
Well, how does one apply for a venture capital company? I think that the most simplest breakdown is, one, you have a will and you have some capabilities that will benefit or be useful in the company. I think the first thing to address is, do you have the will? Is this interesting for you? And things that you could be interested, that I'm interested in, and I know that Oona's interested in, is curious about the future in general, creating kind of convictions in where the world is going, what the world needs, and then technology is a kind of common factor, and working with startups, so companies in general.
What about Oona?
Yeah, I think those are kind of that's the minimum what you should have. Like, you should be interested in this in order to join it. Capabilities, that's really interesting, because I think the industry or the VC scene has changed a lot. So a couple of years back, there were no young people working in VCs, basically. And within couple last years, we've seen a lot of new positions open in venture capital companies in Finland. And that's something new. And what's really awesome is that they come from very different backgrounds. So they're not, like you said, just business, but it's engineering, it's communications, it's accounting, it's marketing. So people have very different backgrounds. But what we've seen is a lot of the current positions held by young people in the Finnish VC is through the startup ecosystem. So a lot of the people who are now working in venture capital as newcomers used to work in one of the ecosystem organizations in Slush or Wave Ventures or so on. So that's been at least a good route to the VC scene here in Finland so far.
And you both seeked, you just went to the Google browser and just put like, where's some VC positions? Or how did you find InVenture Life Ventures as?
Well, I got pretty lucky. So when I was leaving Slush last year, Timo Ahopelto, who's a founding partner here, he's also the chairman of the board at Slush. He just asked me to come over and have a chat, as he tends to do with a lot of ecosystem people. And yeah, then we talked with the team several times, and then I got recruited. So basically, I got to skip the
Nice.
search part there.
Nice. What about you, Johannes?
Equally, I knew the team fairly well before joining InVenture, but they had an open kind of application, and I was selected out of. It was a grueling. I think it took like 2 months. It was quite with a case in between, like getting to know what the work is like. I did a kind of investment suggestion of a startup already, kind of very similar to what I do in my work. But it was fun because I could test what it would feel like to actually work here, and then the InVenture would see what my kind of starting ability and what's my motivation to join the team.
Yeah, I like that, and I actually liked as well when Oona said that there's more young people now actually working at VCs, because it didn't used to be like that, and it's just like great to see that. And of course, then there's variety of opinions, and I think you guys, since you guys are younger, you know how to seek like who are the future entrepreneurs. So I think that is a good asset to have variety of like different disciplines, different like diversity within the team, basically. So I like that. But before I get into, again, my questions, let me take some audience questions. There's a good question there. There's, what is the best way to find a co-founder? And how to recognize a good co-founder and create good teams?
Epic question.
Well, I haven't co-founded a startup yet, so I don't have the experience in that. But I think if I would found a startup with somebody, strong candidates are people I've already worked with. So people I know that we sync, we kind of really kickstart each other. So we make each other better, we complement each other, and we get each other excited. That's somebody I would look for. But of course, it depends what you're founding. So I'm not a technical person. I don't have a development or engineering background. So depending on what I would be building, I'd probably need a technical co-founder. So kind of look for people that complement you, but who you also kind of sync with and have a lot of fun working with. Basically, that's the first thing I'd do.
What about you, Johannes?
Yeah, my first, not a very scalable company by any means, but you mentioned earlier that we found Talk to Talk, which was a project to make Finns the world's best public speakers, and my personal take in it was obviously to become a better public speaker myself, and this was I think 5 years ago. The first thing I did was to try to find the people in a more probable place. So I actually went to a Toastmasters meeting in Helsinki. It's an American franchise to help people create better speeches, and I tried to kind of mingle and find like-minded people who would want to approach it from kind of a fresh perspective. I'm not going to go deeper. So that was one. But same applies to potentially my next company. So for example, if I'd like to found a company that's going to battle climate change, I'd probably go to the university and meet research teams that are potentially in need of a person who could help them commercialize and create a company out of the research. So that's, yeah, the complementary pieces, like you said, is a great way to start a company. However, I would also say that a lot of great companies, for example in Finland, have been founded between friends.
Yeah.
Just to have something fun. It's like having a hobby and then it turns into something larger.
And what is your ideal size of a founder team? Because we're just talking about the Uniqueness Sold by Slush interview, which, by the way, if you're interested at VCs, I definitely recommend to check that out, because it's like it explains it like in a really, really good way. But there was one of the comments was that if there's too many founders, there might be a lot of problems. So his suggestion actually was that usually a number of 2 is a good amount. If there's like 5 people founding a company, it might be a problem. But what do you guys think? What is your take?
I think quality over quantity. So what we look for in founding teams as well is scalability. We look for teams in which at least one person can be C something, or like CEO, CPO, COO. So the chief operating officer, chief product officer, chief technical officer until the end, so at least the exit. So people who can learn and grow with the company. And usually if it's a bigger bunch of people, not everybody scales, and that can create some conflicts or schisma if you have to kind of let somebody go or they don't stay in those positions that they would like to. So often it's quality over quantity in there as well.
Absolutely.
What is your take?
Yeah, whatever the company needs, like a company first, and what kind of resources do you need around it to create a reality. I think too, we can't disagree with Juri because he's such a wise person. But let's say you're building a software company, potentially the typical team might look that there's a sales and strategy kind of person. Then there's someone who knows how to code, so the product person. And the third could be, for example, someone who knows customer interface design and these kind of things. But if you're working on a research-based company, it might be that there's a researcher or 2 of them, and then there's the person who's willing to make it into a company, so commercialize and sales.
Okay, great. You both actually touched upon the impact side of VCs, but now I actually have a question. I know there's a lot of talks about impact, and as I said, from the founder's perspective, but also from the VC's perspective. And you now see like a little text on some VCs' websites when they say like, we are trying, or like, we're making active, we're like small voice, like, we're taking active steps towards, But now to put Lifeline Ventures and Inventure to the spot, what are your companies doing towards impact?
All right. Well, the first thing is that we authentically believe that the most profitable companies of the future are solving the toughest challenges of the world. So, like coming to the original, we are a product for people to invest into to get a profit out. It's a win-win scenario where we believe that something that solves an issue like Swappie, for example, which is a common investment. They are kind of making refurbishment mainstream. So instead of tossing your iPhone 11 after 2 years of use, it's completely capable after change of a battery. So that's one. The will is there. But secondly, there's the kind of legislation pressure as well. There's legislation pressure. So let's say 40% of our actual fund investors is from European Investment Fund, so from the European Investment Bank. And they will increasingly put legislation into what kind of parameters the company has to kind of hit. Let's say typical way to look at companies through some framework is UN Sustainable Development Goals. They have to produce them or something else. And thirdly is the consumer pressure. So aware people like yourselves or Oona or me would choose to buy that second-hand phone instead of the first-hand phone.
Actually, to plug in, this phone is from Swappie.
Okay,
I actually
cool.
did a conscious decision when my phone broke down that I'm just going to go there. And I think that you're right, consumers do base their decisions on their values nowadays. So that does add pressure into VCs as well. So I hope that the little print will become a big print one day. But what about you, Oona?
So what are we doing for impact sustainability?
What is the active steps Lifeline Ventures is taking towards that?
There's actually many things. I devote around 70% of my time to sustainability and responsibility. I'm studying creative sustainability in Aalto University, so that's really my passion. But so For example, we've been investing in climate tech and other sustainable companies and a lot of research-based companies since 2009. So investments like Solar Foods, which is trying to make protein out of air, Carboculture, which is making this biochar that storages carbon, Swappy that was mentioned, or Sulapak, which is making these or replacing plastic in, for example, cosmetics. We made a lot of these investments, so we have these kind of, it's not a direct impact because we're not directly doing it, they're doing it, but we're investing into companies that make a difference. Additionally, we have sustainability in our investment framework. So when we invest in companies, we look through different questions as well. Are they creating something that addresses the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals? Are they thinking about diversity and inclusion? Do they have a plan to address them, if not yet? That's one thing. Also, I'm currently working with our portfolio companies to create their sustainability strategies. So we are kind of making case studies with different portfolio companies on different stages to see when is the right time to start creating a sustainability strategy. How does it look like when you're in pre-seed stage, or when you're already 200 people, or when you're 1,000 people? How does that evolve as well? So those are some of the things we're doing, but we're developing that actively.
And I like that you also can have a personal impact in your job, in your position. Yeah. So I like that you can actually spar with the portfolio companies. I think that's pretty great. But before I again get into my questions, let's take some audience questions. Are VCs substantially moving towards green and ethical investments? We touched upon it a bit, but maybe you can also answer that.
Yes. First thing is that we see entrepreneurs moving towards building ethical and green companies, and it's like a partner. It's a dance together, but the founders are leading the pack, of course. People want to create meaningful companies.
Yeah, and I think what Johannes said earlier, there's pressure on all sides. So there's more founders creating sustainable companies. There's legislation which is tightening all the time, demanding sustainability from companies and from investors. Investors also want to do it themselves, and since the kind of policy making is tightening, it's leveling the ground for everybody. And there's kind of more opportunities. So you see that sustainability and profit go hand in hand. So definitely, I think it's shifting, and I think the first thing is kind of what don't you invest in? So instead of investing plainly in SDG related companies, you don't invest into guns, tobacco, so on. So that's kind of often the first step.
Actually, a good input on that, because can a VC balance it off by investing in tobacco and then investing in a company that goes towards sustainability? Is in your VCs actually, both companies don't invest in invest in startups that can actually create an impact, but on another side, like not a positive impact? Do you both take like a conscious decision on that? That if there's a founder, they have a fire idea again, and it can make a good investment return, but the actual impact side of it is like not a good thing, or it can actually affect the climate change, or in a bad way.
The topics that Oona mentioned, those are complete no-go, and those are like contractually we can't do it. We wouldn't want to do it, but we can't even do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. We have kind of determined the industries we don't invest in, but I don't think it's that black and white. Every company has a positive and a negative impact. I think Upright Project by Anna Nieminen, they had a great report that talks about how you must balance the resources with the output. So if you have a negative impact, everything, even we here have a negative impact with the energy we consume, the food we consume, everything has a negative impact as well, but it's what you make of it. So with what kind of resources do you make then positive impact as well? So I think you have to balance those out, and that's not always so easy to see, but it's really awesome if companies start to kind of measure it and track it, and investors can lead those efforts as well, or at least support them.
Okay, perfect. But then let's get into the Finland's ecosystem. So let's brag for Finland.
Oh yeah.
So first off, the startup scene in Finland, massive
Awesome.
growth. Massive growth.
Yeah.
Like since 2009, even like Altes has been part of it, it has been a great and immense growth. Like you see Helsinki and you see Espoo in these statistics when we are talking about the cities where they produce a lot of VCs that are growing. But then of course behind the growth there's always also investments. There are companies that can grow without investment, but maybe in Finland you still see that the startup scene is pretty much so dependent on also investments. You hardly hear that there's a unicorn success without an investment being part of it. But actually, I just today also listened, I think it was a podcast and they were talking about MailChimp. And actually MailChimp.
It's one of the most kind of
Yeah.
known examples.
Yeah, MailChimp actually grew pretty big without investment, which is like pretty remarkable. But how has the VC scene in Finland progressed? You see that in Finland there has been a big change in the mindset, there's more entrepreneurs coming up, but how has the VC scene in Finland progressed?
Do you want to go?
I can start. It certainly has progressed. It's not that old. So venture capital firms, and just to set the scene, it's quite a narrow space, or there's not that many companies.
Do you want a PP time?
PP time? It's simple.
Okay, good, yeah.
So there are, I think we concluded there's about 60 private equity companies that are approximately in Finland.
I read this in a master's thesis, so
Okay. Yeah,
60.
that's an excellent resource. So, and I know for a fact that there are like approximately 20 of those are venture capital venture capital investors, so willing to invest with high risk, like higher than other private equity companies. And the first private venture capital company was founded, I think, early 2000s. Investors actually the oldest active venture capital fund in Finland since 2005, and then it's grown to that 20. I think the better metric, however, is the growth of how much funding has kind of been invested into Finnish companies. That's the kind of like the key metric, and it's grown to like exponentially to 1 billion. I think Timo, so the godfather, Timo Hapelta, one of the partners here, predicted that it would grow to 2 billion within how many years? Maybe Timo on the line? Within the coming years, so growing exponentially. And obviously that is also kind of, it's partially Finnish venture capital funds investing, but increasingly international investor interest into funding kind of a Finnish founder companies, which is epic because that again creates the bigger cake for us to feast on and build companies here.
And actually, to plug in Timo Ahopelto that Johannes was speaking about, I do suggest to follow him on Twitter because we do so. And he did say that Finland might, within next year or maybe in 2023, surpass Sweden's unicorn amount, which is like, it's crazy. Because if you think about like how young our startup ecosystem is, and we already have been progressing a lot, so
that is per capita.
Yeah, and I think what's also relevant, or what's changed a little bit, is that usually Finnish companies used to be acquired at an earlier stage, but nowadays they're kind of let to grow older. So companies like Volt or Ivan or Swappy are still kind of let to grow here in Finland instead of being acquired to like other European countries or companies and US as well. So that's changed. What else has changed is ticket sizes. So when we say ticket size, it's the amount of funding startups raise. So where seed round used to be, I don't know, something in the hundreds of thousands, a seed round can now be multiple millions. So the ticket size, but that's not only in Finland, it's everywhere. But I think Finnish venture capital scene is kind of closening up to other amazing European hubs as well.
Yeah. I have to address the engine of this all. So investments is one metric, but the vibrance of the startup ecosystem. So Finland, from kind of an international perspective, it's one of the most interconnected and like pound for pound most exciting investment countries. I think the key metric that tells it all of us kind of students listening, that the story that I tell to everyone from abroad is that 2008, Peter Westerbakk asked a class of freshmen in the university how many would become an entrepreneur. It was like a handful of hands, 1%. And a more kind of a more academic study was done recently. It's grown to up to 40% who would consider entrepreneurship as a profession. So the culture shift has actually concretely generated companies. And then one other thing that Finland is excellent about is our high education level. So and higher education, but also high level of research, which is an engine for actually like revolutionary ideas. I'm happy, and I'm putting my money in that will continue, and I want to build my family here and build my company here.
And just to add on that quickly, that since there are companies that are growing big in Finland as well now, it has a cumulative effect, because companies that grow big here have employees that are kind of growing with the company as well, and those employees see the company grow from early stage to later, and they can then become entrepreneurs themselves. So it's this kind of a effect that when you have companies growing, more will come, and I think that's what's been happening in Finland as well.
And I think a good addition to that also is the ecosystem here in Helsinki. I think that we have a really tight-knit ecosystem. Like if you want to build your startup, you might want to rent an office space at 01, but it's not just an office space. There's maybe inventure at the second floor. You can just like knock there and say, Johannes, what do you think about my idea? Do you want to invest? But yeah, it's like it is not common that you see a startup campus where there's the startups and the investors in the same building. So I think that is also, and I think since we have a lot of students watching, I think that what I like also is that the VCs also see the opportunities within the students, because researchers already know it's fire content, but then students, you might be like, I don't know if that person is playing around, but still at Lifeline Ventures, I think there's Flowride as an addition, and there's Very, and both companies are founded by students or young entrepreneurs. So yeah, I think that is pretty nice. And I think also seeing that young students don't really go towards the traditional, let me go to the consultancy firm, but really have the courage right now to try out their ideas. So I like that. But okay, enough about Moona's monologue. Let's take some questions in. What, in your opinion, are some of the most interesting Finnish-based startups at the moment?
Who goes first?
I go. Have to promote my own, but I'm really excited about so many of Lifeline's portfolio companies, so companies we invested in. Some I mentioned already, for example, Sulapak, replacing plastic, Swappy, doing an amazing job with the circular economy model, Solar Foods, creating protein out of air. I think those are some of the really awesome ones. One company as well, Meru Health, that's actually growing in San Francisco, but we're invested in, and they have Finnish founders. They're kind of revolutionizing mental health, which is awesome as well. So I'm like personally attracted to all of the companies solving big problems, and I think there's plenty of them growing here in Finland.
Okay, top 3, Johannes.
Top 3. I'm gonna go beyond. There were many that we also are in our portfolio. As my kind of lines of interest are like climate change action and then human performance, I have to give a shout out to Anthony and team Werneri at Very Stable. So kind of helping people find their metabolic compass, so how their body is functioning, but taking different foods, for example. I have to mention Flowride as well. What is 24 years old, I think.
Yeah, pretty young, yeah.
With an awesome team.
Yeah.
They're just going head first at young age, and they just say out loud that we're going to become the biggest company in the world. It's the time is up.
Yeah, I think the time's up, but those are really good,
Yeah.
really good points. I'm so sorry we cannot take all of your questions in, but I think we should have part 2 maybe and go deeper into it another time. Thank you for joining. Before we end, I must say, if you have been inspired by Johannes and Oona here about you want to work at a venture capital, By Founders is actually hiring interns. It doesn't matter what discipline you are from. So if you want to hear more about it, just contact me from allthis.com and I can tell more. But thank you for all of you. And what would we wish? Good summer. Stay safe, healthy, everything.
Fire.
Sounds good.
Love.
Oh yeah.
Love.
Lots of love.
Peace
Lots of
and
love.
sin.
Yeah.
Yes.
But hey, thank you for joining, guys. And see you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.